Alrighty, and welcome everybody. This is Pastor Sherman Ray, and this is Christ and Culture Show. I want to welcome you all to the broadcast. Hope everybody's doing well today. It is the 1st of July, folks. It is just a brand new, it's a brand new time, and I'm really excited about it. I really want to, something just happened just a minute ago, you guys, and I really want to let you guys know about it. Some of you probably wouldn't even notice it because you didn't see it, but we just had like this critical meltdown here at the studio and stuff like that. And then like 30 seconds later, after, I was cursing the wind, all of a sudden my phone had this major alert on it. And that would have happened right in the middle of the show. And so you never know. God is funny that way, isn't he? God is just funny that way, where, sometimes you think that things are going to be for no reason, but God has everything working out for a reason. Want to welcome everybody to our YouTube channel. Want to welcome you to our podcast if you're listening to us on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. And if you'd like to get in on the conversation, especially on our YouTube channel, you probably noticed that we had a little problem with our YouTube channel, but it's back up and running again. So show should be up and running, and we're just going to resume from where we were at before. I want to bring on the show today, folks, our as always, my partner in crime, Pastor Tommy Allums. Pastor Tommy, how are you doing today?
I am doing well, Pastor Sherman. How are you?
Doing really well. Yeah, doing really good. Yeah, just another beautiful day. And how are his wife and the kids? And the kids?
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, all my kids are doing pretty well, but yeah, my youngest daughter is doing very well.
Awesome. And you mentioned that your daughter, now is your daughter going to be in the worship team? Because you were mentioning before that your daughter's, pretty prolific musically.
Yeah, we're working towards that. I want her to be ready. Not only is she writing her own songs, but I'm teaching her how to worship. So it's not about her up there leading, but just making sure that she understands that we're worshiping God.
Yeah, I'll tell you. And it's funny. We had a what's his name? Michael Tate. He used to be in DC Talk, and because I couldn't remember the name of the band before. And so it was DC Talk, then he was in Newsboys, and he just fell. And we've got so many Christian artists out there that I just don't know if any of them really learned how to worship God. I know they're great musicians, they're great singers, but really, where's their heart at?
Yep, I totally agree. Back in California, my older kids were my worship team, and we did all original songs. Because Scripture tells us to sing unto the Lord a new song.
Okay.
What's a new song? Song that's never been sung before. But how we would get those songs is we would literally get down on our face, worship until we felt like we really connected with God. Then we would just get up and grab our instruments and just start playing.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
That is very cool. Yeah. I'll tell you, there's a spiritual connection between worshipers and God, as opposed to even. I mean, being a pastor is wonderful. It really is. There's nothing wrong with it. Okay, but there's a big difference between singing and something coming from out of here unto God than there is. That people need to experience.
Yes.
And so you have to guard that, though. It's something that's cultivated. It's something. Oh, anyways, we could go on and on about that, right? It really could. So let's talk about probably one of the most important news articles that there is in the news right now. There's a guy by the name of Zoran. I'm gonna screw up his name. Zoran Mamdani. He's a Democrat socialist. He won the New York City mayoral primary, and he's a piece of work. I'll tell you, when I heard about this guy being a Democrat socialist, I started thinking about Bernie Sanders. I started thinking about, all kinds of people who probably should have never run for office in the United States. Maybe in Cuba, Cuba, wherever you like to call it. That's fine with them. Venezuela, that'd be great. But for a Democrat socialist, not just somebody who we think is a Democrat socialist, no, he says he is. He's got some really crazy ideas. For him to win outright against, well, he didn't have great competition, but for people to choose him, I thought was crazy. But I'd like to know what your opinion, Pastor Tommy. What when you heard that this guy won, what did you think?
I was taken aback. I was shocked. I was perplexed on how,
Mm-hmm.
after what this country's gone through in the last 4 years, that people are still. But we're in a dangerous time. The
Mm-hmm.
scripture tells us, the last days will be perilous times. It's dangerous, and these are the kind of people that are in place that make it dangerous. So
Mm-hmm.
we really gotta make sure that we stay prayed up, and hopefully it doesn't spread.
Well, here's the problem with this guy, and I think that this is the thing that's getting everybody is that like much like Barack Obama. Barack Obama was you can say whatever you want to say about Barack Obama. He was not a liar though. Okay, Barack Obama said, "Guess what? I'm going to fundamentally change America." Okay, he said it. He told everybody. He goes, "Guess what? You vote for me. I'm going to fundamentally change America." And when he got into office, that's exactly what he did. He started implementing policies that that are still in place to this day, and that people are saying, "Oh my gosh, what happened?" Um, and so when I see somebody who says, "Hey, guess what? I'm going to do this," and people vote for him, I go, "Guys, did you not listen to this guy? This guy told you what he was going to do." So here's some of the things that these are and you know what? You listen to the talking heads and you know get as much information as you can. These are some of the ideas that this guy says he's going to do. He supports he has support for the Palestinian rights and criticism of Israel. Okay. Once again, he's a Democrat socialist. He identifies as a Democrat socialist and has proposed policies such as rent freeze, free childcare, free buses, paid paid for by taxing wealthy New Yorkers and white New Yorkers is what he said. Okay, um, he's he talks about Islamophobia. Following his primary victory, Mamdani has been subjected to Islamophobic attacks. It's not that people are attacking him from his Islamist background. It's that he is pro-Islam and not pro-America. That's the problem. Um, he's said, and this should be something that people should think about. He says seizing the means of production. He had that comment, and it's a resurfaced clip of Mamdani discusses seizing the means of production. A 2021 drawn outrage from some, including those who fled communist regimes. So, Pastor Tommy, here's the deal. This guy is saying things that are quintessential communist socialist rhetoric, and people are going, "Yeah, I kind of like the guy. He's got a big smile, you know." He dances real well. Hey, remember he's done his dances on TV every once in a while. Jumps into the Hudson, that kind of stuff. And he's good on social media. So is AOC, guys, and she is an airhead. So and yes, I said it. She's an airhead, folks. Um, when you hear of guys like this, Pastor Tommy, um, what comes to your mind when you hear of somebody who starts saying, "Hey, I'm going to seize the means of production in America"?
You know, it just makes me go, what did he just say? Did anybody else hear what I just heard? And people support things that they don't understand. It's just it's mind blowing to me. One of the other things that he said that I thought was extremely dangerous is he said that if Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel came to New York, he would
Mm-hmm.
arrest him.
Yes.
We don't even belong to the ICC. We don't the International Criminal Court. We don't belong to them. So
Mm.
we don't even have a a reason to arrest him because we don't belong to that court system. Um, I think that this guy is dangerous
Yeah.
for the country because if he gets momentum going behind him, oh my gosh, it's Yeah, this is one of those things that's got me thinking like we really gotta pray.
Yeah, I don't think that. Here's the thing: is the folks who voted for him were the rich white folks, who've got money in New York. The working class people didn't. Um, by and large, most Democrats did not. It was really the rich folks who did come out and they really voted for this guy. And this guy is what is he? 33 years old, just 30 something on years. Okay, it would be different if he ran for office for, let's say, you know, Gastonia, North Carolina. Okay,
Yeah,
right?
right,
Some
right,
little
right.
little bitty place, someplace on the East Coast. Okay, this is New York City. It is the
Yes.
largest city in America. It's our financial capital. It's actually the financial capital of the
Of the
world.
world. Yep.
Of the world, right?
Hmm.
And for us to entrust him with that says something about what's the state of affairs in America, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, to me, it speaks to a bigger problem. So, Mamdani, they call him the commie Mamdani, socialist Mamdani. They he is just a manifestation. Okay, he's just a manifestation of a deeper problem in America. That
Right.
America would vote for an avowed communist, an avowed Democrat socialist. They wouldn't vote for Bernie Sanders. As a matter of fact, the Democrats did everything they could not to let Bernie Sanders in. Right?
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders is a Democrat socialist, you guys. I mean, and they said no. Oh no, we're not letting you in. This guy is Bernie Sanders, the younger version of Bernie Sanders. And yet the people said, "Yeah, I think that sounds good. We want to get out the so he had to run against Andrew Cuomo, and Andrew Cuomo was and we talked about this I believe last week. He's a sexual deviant. He was the governor, so they probably said, "Man, let's flip a coin. Who's better, this guy or the other guy?" Right? And they figured they just vote for the Democrat socialist. So Pastor Tommy, what do you think the founding fathers would have said about Mamdani becoming not just a candidate for America's largest city, but actually the front runner for the Democrat Party running for the largest city in America?
Like you pointed out, that used to be the capital at one point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he wouldn't have even been a consideration.
Mm-hmm.
With that mindset back then. That just goes to show you how far we have drifted from where we should be as a
Yeah.
nation. Um, yeah, they wouldn't have put up with it at all. He wouldn't have got that far.
Yeah, I'm just flabbergasted. I really am. I When I heard about this, I went no. There's because I saw the what do they call it? The polls on this guy a couple of weeks back, and he was polling at like 1%, and all of a sudden he goes, just went up to the top and he just took over the whole thing. But there, in a related story, there's a guy named David Hogg. You probably heard about David Hogg, or Hogg, Hogg. It looks Hogg to me, but it's either way. He used to be the assistant to the head over the DNC, the Democrat National Committee. And there was an article about him that said young Democrats see Hogg's power growing outside of DNC. And they kicked David Hogg out of the DNC. He's a young guy. Many of you probably remember him. He was he was involved in, I think it was a Parkland shooting. He was a high school student, and he came out of that alive, and he became a spokesman. And ever since then, he's just kind of been rising. His political capital has just been rising and rising and rising ever since. For what reason, I don't know. But he's just a loud voice, and now they created a monster with this kid. They gave him power, and when he got elected to be the assistant, vice chair of the Democrat National Committee, he just went buck wild, and he started saying, "Hey, We're going to primary all these old folks. I'm going to start this super PAC. You know, this kid raised about $20 million
Wow.
in this super PAC he's got. Oh yeah, he's got a lot of money behind him, and that's why he's just kind of walking around that Clark Kent hair and stuff like that. So here's the article, and it says many young Democrats see David Hogg's exit from the DNC as potentially accelerating his push to wage progressive primary challenges to middle of the road incumbents. Once again, he's been trying to get out of line these guys who are not pushing the progressive movement fast enough. That sentiment was bolstered Tuesday when this Mamdani guy, 33-year-old Democrat socialist, stunned the Democrat primary in New York at the mayoral race. It's going to be a fun next couple of years, he said. He said it's going to be it's going to be fun. He wrote on social media Tuesday night, later adding that all establishment Democrats who endorse, get this, all establishment Democrats who endorse former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo over Mamdani should be primaried. Wow. So, what do you think about this? That David Hogg is basically he's pushing everybody's buttons, man. He's saying, guys, guess what? If you voted for anything other than this Democrat socialist, we should primary you and get rid of you too.
You know, this could be a ploy by the party because they know they need to do something. So this could be their new plan, their new plot to. They've lost badly, you know, this last go round. They lost badly. And so I don't put it past them to come up with this new strategy that they're coming up with just to try and flip everything. Just like you said, get all the old people out. Let's get this new blood in here with these radical ideas and keep the progressive movement, you know, in motion. That's kind of what I see happening because it's everything is fitting too well. You know, all these people are coming seemingly out the blue, and they're just kind of formulating this new plot and plan. It seems like.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't think they. I think their Democrats are probably thinking, "What happened? What happened to our party? Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
what happened?" Because you know what, this kid, he is paying to have people run against people who've got seniority. So politically here, if you're just even playing the political game here, you'd never want to get out of office a senior position person. Okay, somebody who's got standing on committee levels or whatever. Okay, and it doesn't matter whether the guy's good or bad. You keep him in there because he's a good vote for whatever you're doing. Okay, that's not what he's doing. He's going, oh no, get them all, get them all. You know, let's get some young blood. So so this reminds me of a biblical story, Old Testament story, about a king who said, I'm not going to listen to the older guys. I'm going to listen to my young friends, and that's how we're going to set policy. He brought in his younger friends, and they all said, yeah, let's go ahead. I think it's a good idea just to go in there and just wipe out that whole village. Yeah, I think it's a good idea to go ahead and do this or do that. And the outcome was disastrous because young folks are stupid. They, I mean, right? I should say young Americans right now. Okay, not the older, you know, back in the colonial days, they were really pretty smart actually. Okay, but Americans today they're crazy. They're just crazy.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you know, the younger generation, and I have conversations with my daughter, because the younger generation, probably the last generation and a half, maybe two generations, have grown up without either parent in the home.
Mm-hmm.
They have grown up watching TV. They have grown up learning from Instagram, YouTube. So they don't have any practical life knowledge or life skills which causes them to not have any kind of experience to make these rash decisions that they come up with in their mind
Hmm.
without any formulation of possible consequences. So yes,
Yeah.
I, yep.
Yeah. Well, because even like this Mamdani guy, I think before he became an assemblyman, and an assemblyman, I'm not denigrating assemblymen. Okay, there's because we have state assemblymen here. They wonderful folks, but all they do is they go in and vote. Um, Basically, somebody else writes a bill. They go yay, nay, yay, nay. They
Yeah.
meet what? They meet for a couple of weeks, once every 2 years. And that's generally what it is. I know this stuff. Okay, they meet every once in a while. They go up to Carson City here in Vegas, anyway, or here in Nevada. They go up for a couple of weeks. They vote, yay, yay, and then go home. Okay, that's really pretty much it. And they do that for 2 years. He is Mamdani before he became an assemblyman, a three-term assemblyman. I think he was like, I think he was a meter reader or something like that. Okay. And before that, he wrote lyrics for rap music.
Yeah, I saw that.
So, what are his qualifications to run to be the president of New York City? It's the largest city in the nation. I mean, how many million people live in New York?
Was it like 19 million or something?
That's a lot of folks,
Yeah,
man.
that's a lot. Yeah.
And there's a lot of money. I think their budget that they just got from the federal government, I read, $100 billion.
Yeah, that's crazy.
This guy's never thought of $100 billion. Okay, and he's going to oversee $100 billion just from the federal government. That's just from the federal government. Okay,
Yep.
that's not from the
If
money
he
that
gets that.
if he gets that, and he's probably thinking, right? This kid, they're gonna. So you don't put people in. So the Bible talks about qualification for leaders, right? And it says basically people who are experienced, people who have a little
Yes.
bit of experience, okay? People who know the Lord, okay?
Hmm.
Strike one, strike two. He's done. He's already done, okay? You only get 2 strikes, okay? You're young, you're inexperienced, you have no idea, you don't even know God.
Right.
As a matter of fact, you're going against God
Hmm.
all the time because you're a Muslim.
Yeah.
You don't even know our country.
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw this Mamdani guy. He was eating. He was doing some kind of promo video or something like that. And he's in a park, and he's eating rice or whatever, right? And he's got his hand in the rice bowl, and he's going, "Oh yeah, what do you want to ask me, man?" And somebody said, "What are you doing? You've lived in America since you were 7-ish." Okay, he was born in Uganda, moved to South Africa. Then his family moved here, and then so he's been in here pretty much most of his life in America. So what's this rice bowl eating thing? What is that?
Yeah, I guess he doesn't want to get rid of his culture, I guess.
That's not his culture. His culture is America. If he wants to have that culture, go there. Have that culture. This is America. That I think that's this speaks to once again what's going on in America.
Yep.
There used to be a time when people assimilated into American society
Right.
to make America better.
I remember. I remember, as a kid growing up in the 70s, the Vietnam War happened. We had families from Cambodia, refugees, come and move to our neighborhood. We
Mhm.
loved them. They were beautiful people, and they let us eat their food, and and their whole thing was they wanted to be an American.
Yeah.
They learned the language like that. One of my neighbors, when she came, she was pregnant, and because she loved America so much, do you know what she named her son when he was born?
What?
California.
There you go. There you go. That makes sense, doesn't it? that makes perfectly good sense. Call him North Dakota or Dakota, right?
Yeah.
Right? Sure. Why
Yep.
not? Yeah, there
But
used to be a
that just
time.
backs up what you're saying. There was a time when people moved here to assimilate here,
Yeah.
to take on the lifestyle. But now people are coming over trying to change
Hmm.
it into something else.
Yeah, I think that along with that story goes this AP story, and it's talking about the national pride is declining in America. Can you believe that? And it's a recent poll they took, and it says it's split along party lines, and it was a new Gallup poll, and it says only 36% of Democrats say they're extremely or very proud to be American. Okay, and reflecting a dramatic decline in national pride that also that's also clear among young people. The findings are a stark illustration of how many, but not all, Americans have felt less of a sense of public pride in their country over the past decade. The split between Democrats and Republicans at 56 points is at its widest since 2001, meaning basically Republicans really think America is pretty cool. Democrats are like, okay. That includes all 4 years of Donald Trump's first term. And I wish you could see the poll here, and maybe next time we'll do some more graphics that we'll try to get up here. But one of the things it shows is they show this graph of the people groups and Democrats, Republicans, and the Republicans continue to be the same thing. It's pretty much the same thing, kind of creeps along the same. That Republicans really think America's pretty cool, and the Democrats it goes it craters. I mean, it's just a seismic shift, and especially since 2016, 2017, it kind of went up for just a little bit. It was always going down, but it just went up for a little bit, and then it just craters again to about 36%. They said only about 4 in 10 American adults who are part of Gen Z, which is defined as those born in 97 to 2012, expressed a high level of pride in America. And 6 in 10 millennials, those people are born between 1980 and 1996, and at least 7 in 10 U.S. adults older than in older generations, which means basically older generations of folks tend to still have a sense of patriotism, but the younger generations don't. So I want to tell you a real quick story, and I know I've taken up all this time here. My granddaughter came over with her boyfriend and one of his friends a couple of days ago, and my granddaughter is 21 now, and so her boyfriend's the same age, about 21, and the other guy is about the same age. And so my wife and my granddaughter went outside. The boys said, "Mr. Ray, I'd like to ask you some questions," and they wanted to know what my thoughts were on politics, the culture, this, that, and the other thing. Come to find out, now these are young African American boys, and just so anybody wanted to think about that. And they wanted to find out how me as a black man felt about America, to see if I was tracking along the same way they are. They are Trump supporters, they're conservatives. I was really very surprised because they were questioning me about this whole thing. So they are and they would be Gen Z? No, they'd be millennials, wouldn't they? Because they're 21 years now. I don't remember. So anyways, I get lose that stuff.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on this widening gap between pride in America between Democrats and Republicans?
Maybe because a lot of Democrats are so angry. They're just angry about everything. Um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but one of the things that I kind of want to point out is the word pride. God hates pride. I know how we use it,
Mm-hmm.
but we got to be careful as believers on being proud about anything because God
Mm-hmm.
hates pride. But to answer your question, um, that widening gap is happening because they're not getting their way. We can see
Mm-hmm.
whenever they don't, and you pointed it out, there were cycles, right? And those cycles were around elections when they were trying to get their way, and when they didn't get their way, boom, it just plummeted. That's why we're having riots. That's why we're having all these gatherings and all this stuff that's happening, all this chaos that's happening. And sadly to say, it's always mostly one particular party. But that just goes to show they're angry because they're not getting their way, and even when they do get their way, they'll find something else to be angry about, and so
Yeah.
that's kind of what it is.
Yeah, well, and I think part of it is, I think part of that is exactly what it is that they didn't get their way. But I think part of it is that they're somebody is twisting the wrench of this anti-American thing. We've been hearing it for many, many years. I mean, we actually started hearing it back in the '60s with the hippie generation. Hey, they hated the Vietnam vets, and they came back, and we've seen a kind of a slow creep. If it had been something just right away, we would all go, oh, we noticed it. But it's been a slow creep
Yeah.
that has been coming over America for many, many years. And now it's like a tightening of the noose around America, where we're seeing generation after generation of young people saying that they hate America. There's an article that we probably should get to it right now, as a matter of fact, that that talks about this group. There's a group called what is it called? Bob Villain. Bob Villain is for some of you who probably heard about them already over the weekend. The video they did went viral, and we're not going to play it because we're not going to give them any play or anything like that. But they were playing in the Glasgow concert series or whatever it was, and when they played in this concert, what they did is they basically started chanting. The first thing they started chanting was free Palestine, that kind of thing, and then the guy he started saying, he goes, oh, you like that, huh? And then he goes, yeah. And then the next thing the guy says is, death to the IDF, death to the IDF, and the crowd is like going, yeah, death to the IDF, okay, which means the Israeli Defense Force, which is the army of Israel. And this guy is just going off, man. Yes, death to the IDF. Well, these guys, and then he goes, oh yeah, to the river, to the sea. Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, man. Yeah, that's cool. He thinks he's real cool. This guy's a rapper. They're two guys. It's a duo. Well, these guys were supposed to come to America. Here's the thing about it. They were going to come to America and do like a 20-city tour in America. And our State Department says, no, that ain't going to happen. That ain't going to happen. And I'll tell you, I applaud that. I'm going to stop right now to applaud. this right? I think that anybody should be able to come to America if you've got talent, if you've got, something good to contribute. These guys don't need to be anywhere near America. I mean, your thoughts on, and I think, once again, this speaks to a wider thing. How they got 20,000 people, 30,000 people in a concert to start going death to the IDF. And it, to me, is criminal. So your thoughts, Pastor Tommy?
I agree with the State Department. Maybe 15 years ago, I probably would have thought that was harsh, but the way everything is happening right now, mm-hmm. Israel is our ally, mm-hmm. and we know that the whole world is against them right now. And we're the only ally that they have, basically. Mm-hmm. And they want to come to our shores and do that same thing. We're already in a country that's going through that kind of division already, and President Trump is trying to get it snuffed out. We don't need to add gasoline to the fire. So I applaud the State Department for not letting them come.
Yeah,
because they're going to just stir up more trouble.
I would have thought that you would have more people saying, because right now we don't see any backlash. Isn't that really funny? Right now, Nobody's going, wait a minute, they should be able to come here. Yeah. I don't hear anybody saying, yes, let those guys in right now. Mm-hmm. Do you think that this is actually that people don't care? Or do you think that that this is not one of those things that they're saying, yeah, we'll just let those guys go on this one? I mean, what do you think that, because I don't see any, usually there's a backlash. I mean, there's other stories, every time Trump does something, every time the State Department does something, there's always like some lawyer or somebody jumping up and down going, oh, you should let that Nazi come to this country. You should let him burn down that forest or something like that.
That's a good question. I've never heard of these guys before, so maybe a lot of people are like, "Who are these guys? Who cares?" But if it was somebody like, I don't want to say important, but well known, um, maybe it would be a little bit more backlash. But I never heard of these guys before until I saw this story. So
No,
maybe that's the reason why. Who are these guys? Who cares?
you know what? Evidently, there's some big stuff, and but I think people heard their voice too because they're British. So they're a
Mm.
British group. Um, Other than them, they got really long hair. It's almost like Milli Vanilli on, but angry, an angry, angry Milli Vanilli, and the guy is just screaming and ranting. So here's what I heard that has been going on, is that you've got these um, performers, and the promoters are saying, "Hey, you have got to be edgy. You've got to push this whole anti-Israel thing, and you've got to do it on stage because if you don't, guys, guess what? We're not going to be on the cutting edge of things. So you've got to start saying things." And there was one singer, and I apologize because I don't know what her name is, um, but she said, "I'm not going to do it. No, I'll just do something else for a little bit," because she refused to do that. But these guys evidently thought, "Hey, this is a good idea. Let's put it out there and let's see what happens." Well, it's costing them big time because they now they're not going to have any access to the most lucrative market that their little dreadlocks could ever be exposed to.
Yeah, you just touched on something that we really got to pay attention to. Just like this group, someone is behind the scenes pulling the cords. They're putting this stuff in there. I think the same thing is happening to Mom Donnie. You mentioned it. Whoever's got the money is
Hmm.
saying you're gonna run on this. We're
Yeah,
gonna back you. And it's just like that song we all hated on the radio, but because they played it every 2 hours, it became a hit. You know what I mean? And to that's what's happening to us here in America.
yeah, I think you're right. I really do. Well, I'm glad to see that at least these guys are not going to be here for a while. Um, and so hopefully, I don't know. You'd think that there would come a time when maybe it'll calm down just a bit, just calm down a little. I don't think it's going to happen. I just don't think it's going to
Yeah.
happen. Yeah, I think it's going to be it's going to grow up. Some of you folks might just be first time joining us here on the broadcast. Pastor Sherman, this is Pastor Tommy, and this is Christ and Culture show, and we come to you once a week or so and talk to you about what's going on in the culture and how we as Christians view this thing, and hopefully how we can pray about it and we can actually be an influence in the culture. And I just came up with a new phrase that I heard, and that we need to be the thermostat and not the thermometer in the culture.
There you
We
go.
don't need we need to be the ones that setting the tone for the culture, and not the one who's just kind of along for the ride. Okay,
Yep.
amen. Um, well, so there is still a move afoot in the nation to eradicate. I shouldn't say eradicate, but round up all of the uh, illegal aliens, and generally the worst come first, and then we'll go to the regular folks that are out there. Um, the president and Tom Holman and Christy Nome and all those folks are out there doing a yeoman's job of ICE agents going around to these places and that and rounding up all these bad people. Well, some people have taken exception to the fact that this is happening, and one guy he created an app to tell people when ICE would be in the area. And it's a dangerous job to be an ICE agent as it is. But now a guy came up with an app that works in real time. Here's the thing: it works in real time to tell you where the ICE agents are or have been, and it's basically it's a warning device so that you know where it's at. Well, CNN, many of you have heard of CNN before. They heard about this, invited the guy on who invented this thing, and for all intent and purposes, promoted this and amplified this guy's invention. This story is out of Gateway Pundit, and it says a radical leftist recently introduced an app that will not only help illegal aliens avoid being captured by ICE, but put immigration agents in danger. I'm going to say that again. Okay, it's going to put ICE agents in danger. Not surprisingly, one of America's worst networks was happy to amplify the app, and we're CNN. Guy's name was John Berman. Told audiences that a tech developer had developed this. And I'm not going to tell you what it is, guys. I'm not going to say the name of it, of the app. But it's a new way to track ICE and oppose the Trump administration's migration policies. And really, it's the Trump administration's efforts to eliminate all the illegal aliens who were illegally allowed into the country over the last 4 years. As the Trump administration steps up ICE raids and mass deportations, the article goes on to say, one tech developer is pushing back with an app designed to track ICE activity in real time. So, Pastor Tommy, this app tracks ICE agents' movements in real time. You've got guys like Hakeem Jeffries and, the guy who's over in California. I forgot the guy's name now. It's the governor. I forgot the guy's name. That they are saying, well, why don't the ICE agents take their masks off? Why don't we do this? And here's the thing. It's a dangerous job, guys. It's a dangerous job. And now this guy creates an app. What do you say about a guy who does something like this? And, Pastor Tommy, what do you say about CNN who's going around amplifying this guy's app?
I'd pull their license. If I was Trump, I'd try to pull their license because they're interfering with government process. They're putting, just like you said, federal agents in jeopardy. Mm-hmm. They're hindering the operations by inciting people to go and challenge the work that President Trump put in order to bless this country. I'd say arrest them. CNN shut them down. That's just crazy. Here's my question to these people. What are you going to do when these sleeper cells get activated? Are you going to cheer them on? What's going to... Wow.
Oh, yeah. They probably... I wouldn't doubt if they did. I really wouldn't doubt if they did. They would go, oh, well, it's all... They would blame it all on Trump.
Yeah, like they're blaming him for everything.
They would blame him for everything. They're going, yes, except for the good things. And I think that's the crazy thing about it. The guy is doing everything he can to fulfill his campaign promises. That's why 70 million people voted for this guy. In excess of 70 million people. They said, you know what? We don't want this in our country. We just don't want this in our country. And now that he's trying to do something about it, people are pushing back. Yeah. In a similar story, there was a story about these. There was a 6-3 vote by the Supreme Court. I don't know if you saw this story. 6-3 vote by the Supreme Court saying that these district courts cannot impose nationwide injunctions upon the executive branch of the government. Basically every time President Trump does something, you've got some judge in like Podunk, Iowa, or in Gastonia, North Carolina, maybe he's in the 2nd district or whatever, and he goes, you know what, I don't like what you're doing, so I'm going to issue an injunction stopping what you're doing, President. Well, the Supreme Court says, no, you can't do that. You can't do this. And but here's the thing about it is, Pastor Tommy, I was looking to see how many lower court justices there are. There's like over 700.
Yeah, it's got to be a lot.
There's a lot. I mean, there is a lot of them. And many of them are, they've got appellate judges and they've got this person, that kind. But district judges, they're well over 300 of those guys. Well over 300 of those guys. And 300 of them, there's a lot more than that. But anyways, 300 of them were put in place by Bill Clinton. These
Wow.
guys are in there for life. They cannot be. You can't get rid of them. You can't. You could. Well, you could. You could impeach them. Okay. So you could impeach them, or you could defund them. I guess Congress could defund them, but other than that, you can't get rid of these guys. And so they're going to be there until they drop dead. So I wonder to myself, and I forgot where I was going with this whole thing. What was I talking about? I forgot where I was going on this. Okay, it doesn't really matter at this point. Let's go on to something else because we're going to run out of time if we don't. There was a story on Newsmax, and there was an Iranian cleric. This is crazy, and he issued a fatwa against President Trump and Bibi Netanyahu. This guy's a senior Iranian cleric, issued a decree calling for all Muslims to seek retribution against President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. This guy put out a hit.
Yes.
What do you think about this? There's a guy, an Iranian cleric. What are your thoughts on this, Pastor Tommy?
You know, if I was President Trump, I'd be calling the cabinet and everybody who's in the military. Should we just go blow this guy up or what? He just put a hit out on us. You know, I don't know. You know, and from my understanding, I was speaking to a friend of mine yesterday. He's from India, so he has a lot of dealings with Muslims because he is a born again believer and he gets persecuted all the time by Muslims. But he shared something with me about how serious people take the fatwa. They're very serious about that. And so really President Trump really has to take this serious.
Yeah.
Because they don't issue these by accident or just flippantly. They do it because they mean it and they want it carried out. It's an order. It's an order for them to carry this out. And so we just got to pray that he continues to be protected. And Netanyahu, the same thing. Because this country, I don't think this country would survive if President Trump was assassinated. It would be civil war in the streets. It would be dangerous.
And unfortunately, poor Iran would probably be a parking lot.
It
would. It might be just a small parking lot, but that's pretty much a crater. President Trump has said he has left orders that if something should happen to him, and they find out that it's Iran, that they need to make it into a parking lot.
Yep.
That's, and you know what? Can you imagine that? You have somebody who has issued an order to kill your president.
Worldwide.
Yeah, worldwide. There's the Israelis and the Americans know exactly where the Ayatollah is at. They know where he's at. They've known where he's at for a year. And even President Trump said, "Hey, we know exactly where you're at."
Yep.
And we've said, "Do not kill him" to the Israelis because they were going to kill you. Okay.
Yeah.
Be happy because they were going to kill you. Okay, and we just put out an order not to kill you, and it would have happened. Okay. And then like a week later, they go, "Oh no, but we're going to kill you."
Yeah.
So biblically, we've talked about this. We haven't gotten into it big time, but it talks about Iran in the last days. Okay, talks about it in Ezekiel. It talks about it in the Book of Revelation, right? And it says, guess what? Iran is going to be a part of a coalition of nations that are going to come against Israel. So they're not nice guys. Okay, they're not going away. And we seem to think, hey, guess what? We're good. And I think that maybe there's some people that are surrounding President Trump that should remind him of that and say, hey, these are not nice guys. Yeah. They are going. It's not like these guys are Hawaii. You know what I mean? Or they're Brazil. Okay, where the sun is always shining. Okay, these guys are named co-conspirators in the Book of Revelation, in the
Yep.
book of Ezekiel that are going to come against in the last days, and they're going to do whatever they can to make sure Israel is wiped off this earth. They won't succeed, but
Right. Yep.
We just got a couple of minutes left here, Pastor Tommy. Well, on a brighter note, though, on a brighter note, out of Breitbart, there's a story about the Rwandan foreign minister, and I don't know if people knew about this because we've had so much, stories going on about other things that are going on. There was a war between Rwanda and I believe it is the Congolese. Yeah, the Republic of Congo.
The Congo.
Yeah, the DRC. 30 years these guys have been fighting. 30 years they've been fighting, and said that it's the longest conflict on the continent. 30 years. And I'm not going to try to even say the guy's name. Okay, I'll just call him. I'm not even going to try to say his name. But he gave an interview, and this is just over the weekend. He said, we've had a genocidal movement that has been destabilizing our country during this whole period, over 30 years. And anyone, including President Trump, who would help sizably to bring this conflict to an end deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. Absolutely, he said. And basically, not only has the Prime Minister of Rwanda said that the president should be nominated for a Nobel Prize, but the leaders of Pakistan and India said the same thing. Plus, several Republicans have put his name in for the Nobel Peace Prize. Can you imagine President Trump, after all this and after all the fighting in America, that all of a sudden they said, Mr. President, you're the man?
That would be vindication.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
I can imagine him right now. I could see Chuck Schumer's. His face would get all twisted. That was a Jasmine Crockett.
She might commit suicide.
You should do, say, Jasmine, I want you to come there with me. I want you to be on the same plane as me to see me get this award. Ha! I love it. I want Nancy Pelosi. I would invite them all. I would invite all the leaders of the Democrat Party. I would say, you're all coming with me. It's an order. Yeah. You're coming with me. And you're all going to stand up there and stand there as I'm going to get my award, and I'm going to stand right next to you and go,
have it live on CNN.
Yeah. Live. An exclusive. Right?
Yeah, there you go.
An exclusive, man. Oh, yeah. Rachel Maddow. That's who you should bring on. Rachel Maddow with her little cockatoo hair and stuff. Man. Oh yeah, I think that would be good. Doesn't the word says that you could heap? It's like being nice to them is like heaping coals on them.
Yeah. Well, the Bible says that Jesus triumphed over the devil.
That's it. Put that devil under my feet. There used to be that song, Under My Feet, right?
Feet. Yep.
Yeah. Satan is under my feet. Yes. I'll tell you, that would be awesome that he wins. So it doesn't, it's wonderful that you'd have, your buddies in there, your homeboys, and stuff like that next to you. That's wonderful. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? You need to have your enemies right there. You need to have your enemies. I'll tell you, President Trump, if you're watching this, and I know you watch the show all the time, but anybody who's close to the president, if you win the Nobel Prize, don't just invite, the guys, okay? You need to invite your enemies, all of your enemies. Bring them right there with you, okay? Invite the Ayatollah, okay? Putin, get Putin in there, King Kim, and all these guys, right? You need to invite them all because that's how you just put it right there to them, man. What a great story. I love that story. Well, right now, so last thing, I guess, before we leave, one last story. And this isn't on your notes, Pastor Tommy, so just today, because this was a late breaking story, the big beautiful bill that President Trump has been working on for a couple of months now passed in the Senate today. Okay, passed in the Senate. Unfortunately, there were 3 dissenting Republican votes, and J.D. Vance, the vice president, actually had to step in to break the tie in the Senate. So the bill passed 51 to 50. I think it was no, it wasn't Collins. I forgot which ones there were. I know Rand Paul was one of the dissenting ones that didn't come in. I was just so disappointed in him. And now the bill goes back to the House for them to do their thing, and then it's going to go to the president's desk. This is probably one of the biggest things. And now here's the problem with America, is that we've got people, if that bill had not passed in the Senate, it would have triggered the largest tax increase in American history.
Yep.
Every single Democrat voted against it. Every single Democrat who says, yes, we love America, we love America. All of them voted for the largest tax increase in American history. And here's the problem, Pastor Tommy. I thought these people are supposed to be running and serving our country so that no matter what happens, that we all benefit. Why would a Democrat or anybody vote for there to be a misery and for there to be hardship in America? Aren't these folks supposed to be voting to help us out as Americans?
That's what we hope, but obviously that's not the case. Why would anybody want to vote for the largest tax increase? We're already having, financial struggles throughout America. Mm-hmm. Why would we want to add to that? I just don't get it. And you're just going to just shake your fists and say, yeah. It's crazy that people are still supporting that. It just boggles my mind.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what the Bible talks about, talking about leaders. That our leaders are supposed to be people who are supposed to have certain qualifications. And I think we as a country we've failed so much. I mean, we've not just failed, it's miserable. But it talks about also that that even our founding fathers, and I'm big on history now. My biggest thing now is working on history and what our founding fathers thought, because these were people who believed in God. I mean, they are so spiritually mature compared to us that it's a shame. And now, nearly 250 years later, we are bearing the fruit of what we have allowed to happen in this country, and we've allowed people to get into office that shouldn't be there. Yep. As a matter of fact, actually the founding fathers said something very interesting. They said that people shouldn't run for office. They should be chosen to lead.
Yeah.
They said they don't trust anybody who would run for office, because they are now if they chose you to be in office, you couldn't refuse, right? Mm-hmm. You shouldn't refuse. But it was a consensus of the people who said, we want you to be in office. Because like George Washington, they wanted him to be a king. He goes, no, I don't want to. No, because I will serve, but I don't want to be. Okay. Nowadays, guys go, oh no, I want to be in office. I want to be in office, and they do it for selfish motives.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with America. Well, now it's really about Christians, us nominating Christians, and enlisting Christians to be in office. Because guess what? If we don't do this, guys, guess what? We're going to continue to get Democrat socialists. We're going to get people who are, Muslims. We're going to get people who don't believe in Christianity at all, and they want to force their brand of reality on America.
Yep.
Your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I agree. I've said it before. We're in a time of reprieve where the church has to wake up, be activated, be in prayer, letting the light shine, declaring the gospel of the kingdom. If we miss this opportunity, I don't know that we'll get another opportunity.
Yeah, I think you're right, Pastor Tommy. Well, we're about out of time. nation, we need to wake up. We really do, because if we don't, I'll tell you, especially over the next couple of weeks, you've got this guy Mamdani, who's going to be running for New York, I think America, you've got a great opportunity, especially folks who are listening to us in New York City, and I know people listen to us out in New York. You need to be active, especially if you're a Jewish person. No, you better not vote for this guy. Oh my gosh! And anyways, well, Pastor Tommy, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. It is 4th of July. You're going to get out there and shoot off some fireworks or watch some fireworks, I hope?
I just watch.
Just going to watch. Safe. It's much safer that way. Yep. It really is. All right. Well, you have a wonderful 4th of July weekend, and we will see you again next week, okay?
Yes, you too. God bless.
God bless you. Bye-bye. And God bless you folks, too. I want to thank you once again for being a part of the broadcast. And I hope that you all have a safe and sane 4th of July. Go out there. Don't be fearful, you guys. Don't be fearful of getting out there and celebrating the Independence Day of this nation. It's our 250th anniversary, and we need to celebrate America. Our founding fathers said, that it's a city set upon a hill. We're a shining light set upon a hill. But don't forget, this democracy could be taken away from us in one season, in 1 year, if we as believers don't do our job and protect it. Pray for it. Okay. Anyways, this has been Pastor Sherman Ray for Christ and Culture. I want to thank you once again for being a part of the broadcast, folks. You have a wonderful day in the Lord. We'll see you again next week for more Christ and Culture. Bye-bye.